It's Marc Hull-Jacquin here with Movified, your host and also owner of Salmon's Moving and Storage, located here in beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia. Today, I have a guest that has the same name as me, but spelt the French way. So it's an M-A-R-C instead of an M-A-R-K. I remember always arguing with my parents that I wanted the C instead of the K because I thought it was cooler. So he's definitely much cooler than I am. Marc, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and who are you?
Thanks for having me on, Marc. This is really exciting for me and for my organization. My name is Marc Hull-Jacquin. I'm the founder and CEO of Shelter Movers, a national Canadian charity that provides free moving and storage to survivors, mainly women and children, when they are fleeing abuse. We're a national group powered by volunteers. We have a small staff team, and we've been around since 2016.
I love it. I really am so excited to have you on the show because it's been always a place in my heart, and we had talked briefly about it before. In the past of the years of doing moving, we worked with a lot of foundations and companies that have always the need for moving services. And we're talking hey, this person needs to be out at 11 o'clock, or at 2 o'clock in the afternoon because the husband's getting home at 4. And it's a very sensitive subject. Can you help? Can you provide this? Just send us the invoice, and however, or flat rate it, whatever needs to get done. We just really need to help this person out. And to me, I think, for anybody that can help out, it's vital. So what made you get into this? Because to me, when I do some research, especially across Canada, you're the only one of its kind that has taken an initiative. Most moving companies, we go, okay, great, we volunteer some time, we try and, do something good for our community, but you've taken it to a whole other level. So how did you get involved? How did it start? Bring me back to 2016.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride, I'm not going to lie, these past 8 years. I was not in the moving industry at all in 2016. I was in oil and gas in Toronto and on leave with our daughter. We have 3 kids. And I just wanted to, I'm looking at Clarice and looking at my daughter and kind of saying to myself, this kid kind of won the lottery, so to speak. She's got 2 loving parents. We've got a great life together. She'll want for nothing, and she'll have a safe place to sleep every night. And I don't think it's asking a lot to think that every parent deserves a chance to give their kids a safe place to sleep at night. I think that's something we all need to own as a basic right that everyone should have. And so what could I do to help other parents in Toronto and maybe elsewhere give their kids the same kind of household my wife and I can give my kids? So I had that kind of inspiration from my daughter and started thinking about the journey of people who are experiencing abuse and all the steps they have to go through, from living with the violence in their home to being in a thriving, happy household where they're in control and have independence from their life. And how do we get them? How do we help them get there in a way that ensures that they are the drivers of that bus? They are in charge of their destiny, and they're making decisions for themselves and their kids. And so I realized, there are police services, there are women's shelters and transition homes, there are all these different agencies that are there to support survivors. But if she can't get out, if she can't physically leave, or if she has to leave at 2 a.m. with the stroller and a couple bags attached to it and jump in a cab and get to a shelter and never go back to get her things, then we're really not she's not setting herself up for success, and we are not there to support her for a successful ending. But what if a survivor, as I said, mainly women, what if she could leave, more or less when she wants, how she wants, with the items that she wants, with dignity and safety, and how does that change the trajectory of her path? And came up with this idea of a moving service, a free moving service that was centered on her and her priorities. And then I wrote this concept document. I picked up my daughter and I went and peddled this idea to the police and to shelters. And over again, I was getting the same response, similar to what you said, sort of saying, yeah, we know we need this. But there are a lot of moving parts to figure this out. No one's really done it before. The shelters were sending their own staff in their own cars, and they're driving up to the back of the house, and they're going in through the back door with the woman and scrambling and grabbing whatever they can. He's coming in the front door, parking in the driveway. They're running out of the house with whatever they can get. It's just a dangerous and undignified way that we are responding to this problem. And so I try to really turn it on its head and say, what if we showed up with a crew of trained, survivor-centered people, ideally volunteers, people from the community who want to take care of families in their community? What if we had security guards and police present? What if we had a pet fostering service ready to take the pets because he's threatening to harm the pets, and she won't leave unless the pet is safe? What if we had a language interpreter ready there to help her, if she doesn't speak English or French, help her communicate her wishes in a clear way? What if we rally these people together, get some trucks, get some storage, and provide this coordinated service? What would that look like? And so I wrote this concept up and started testing it with a shelter here in Toronto. I'd work all day, I'd come home, we'd make supper for the kids, put them to bed, and off I'd go with a rental truck that my wife and I are paying for, with a piece of paper, with a name and an address given to me by Women's Shelter. And I'd get there, I'd knock on the door, and she'd answer, and I'd say, "I'm Mark. The shelter sent me. Are you ready to go?" And she'd say, "Yes." I'd say, "Is there anything you'd like to take with you?" She'd say, "Yes." We'd pack it up, we'd bring some boxes and put it in the truck and leave. And I did that 4 or 5 times a week for almost 2 years. With a small group of volunteers. And here we are 8 years later. The organization is significantly different. We are a much larger operation. We're about a $6 million annual budget. We operate in 9 Canadian cities. We've just announced Winnipeg as our 10th Canadian city to open later this year. We're moving about 150 families a month now.
Wow.
We have 1,000 volunteers across the country, and about 70 full and part-time staff to help supervise those volunteers. It's a much larger operation. I'm very proud of what we've achieved and what Shelter Movers has become. But to put it in perspective, we move about 2,000 families per year, thereabouts. But last year, there were over 140,000 phone calls to police relating to violence in the home or abuse. That's our sandbox. That's what we need.
So you're only touching on such a small number. When you look at, you've done 2,000 moves and you get 140,000 calls that are coming in.
And am I expecting us to be able to move 140,000 times a year? No, I'm not. But what if we were moving 10% of that? What if we're moving 14,000 families? 1,000 families a month or thereabouts. I think that's an achievable goal if we continue on our growth trajectory, and if people like yourself give us a platform to talk about what we're doing so we can amplify the message and recruit more people and attract more dollars and investments in order to open in more cities, because our moral imperative is to be where survivors need us to be. This is probably the most important and maybe the most dangerous decision some people will make in their lives when they decide to flee. And if we can make that very stressful, dangerous, and complicated decision easier and safer, I think a lot more survivors will take advantage of the opportunity.
100%. I mean, first, I thank you for your service, because you're right. When you first started talking, a lot of us in the moving industry, we think about it. Or, even if you don't even take that away, lots of people have this idea. I want to give back. I want to give back to how can I help? And it stops with the pad of paper. There's after that, that's it. For you to take the next step and going, okay, great. I'm going to talk to this shelter. We're going to rent a truck. We're going to make things happen. And we're going to start this because this is something that I want to do and I want to change. Is a huge accolade to who you are. So, I mean, you should. I can only imagine your family is very proud of yourself, and you're proud of yourself of the accomplishments that you and your organization have done in 8 years. I want to take it back to the beginning. So, you've started this. The shelter's kind of working. You're working for free. Sure, you're working still probably in the oil and gas field. How does it how does it work? Like, how does that transition go into going, okay, hi government, do I get some funding in here? Is there somewhere to help me? I would like to at least put fuel in these trucks so that, I can have that, or I can get some staff to help, because there's got to be some people that are on a payroll as opposed to everybody volunteering their time. What was your next step?
I appreciate the kind words. I appreciate the encouragement. I get lots of praise for having done what Shelter Movers is doing, and I always appreciate it. But the reality is, this wouldn't have worked without my wife, Megan, who, when I was out 4 nights a week moving, she was the one taking care. She's a lawyer. She has a very busy career, and she was the one taking care of our 3 kids at night, making sure they were safe and asleep in bed when I was out testing this crazy new idea. So,
Shout out to Megan.
Right?
Shout out to Megan. Yeah, hope you're listening to this when it goes live. We appreciate you. We love you.
We do, and I'll send her the link so that she knows I'm praising her too, because I think she deserves it. But I would say nothing's achieved alone. I'll take credit for the idea for sure. I think I came up with an interesting idea, but it was mobilized by me and a group of volunteers. So maybe a month or 2 into the Shelter Movers actually operating, I decided that I did need more humans who believed in this, and I needed to build a bit of a movement of community grassroots support. And so you're asking the tangible things that happened. One of them was Metro Morning is CBC's biggest radio show in Toronto, 1.3 million listeners or something ridiculous, or 3 million. So I politely but persistently badgered their producer, whose email I found online, and said, "I've got a morning story for you. We're about to open. I created a bit of a fake launch event. I mean, I invited my friends and made people look numerous in the room, but I didn't have anybody actually doing the moves with me at that time. But I organized an event. We bought some food. We did it in the lobby of my wife's office, and I told CBC, we're having this big launch event in downtown Toronto. I'm coming from the business community. I'm a man. I'm a white man, a white straight man in Toronto. It's not normal for people who look and sound like me to operate in this sector. It's usually women-led. It has always been women-led, but I want to be an ally to this. So there's an angle to that story that I want you to cover. And they ignored me 2 or 3 weeks in a row. And then finally on the 4th week, I think she politely said, "Listen, we got an opening here. You got 7.5 minutes. Will you stop calling me if we give you the interview?" And I said, "Yes, I will stop calling you."
That's awesome.
So I got my 7.5 minutes. I put my phone number. I mentioned my phone number and my email in the interview, and my phone and my email blew up within a few hours with people wanting to find out more. And that was, it was one of those serendipitous moments where a lot of good things happened around the same time. It was a good time of day. The right people were listening. And suddenly I had 20 people who were willing to do the move. So I wasn't doing every single move every single time. And the second thing that happened within the first 6 months was, again, from that media and other media, I was pitching the story a lot to people because I wanted to build this thing. Was a mysterious phone call from Yona Zuckerman of the Zuckerman Family Foundation. And Yona Zuckerman calls me and says, "Marc, I love what you're doing. I read the article about you in whatever magazine or newspaper, wherever she saw it. Can you come down and we can talk? We'd like to incubate and support new and emerging ideas for community service." And so I, try to be all official, and I can find the time. Meanwhile, I'm freaking out in the back of my head. This person,
your fist pump in the air. You're like, yeah.
And she invites me to a meeting at their offices. I'm late for the meeting because I was stuck in traffic. I'm not late for anything, but I was late for this meeting. I'm all like hot and sweaty and nervous, and I've got my stats. And I sit down, and I said, "Thank you for your patience. I'm here to give this presentation." And Yona Zuckerman says, "Marc, I've done a fair bit of research on your organization. Are you a good person? I said, "Well, I'm trying to be, She's like, "Good. Are you going to spend our money responsibly?" And I said, "Yes, I definitely will spend it responsibly and transparently." She said, "Good. So we're good, right?" And I said, "Well, no, I'd like to show you them." She's like, I don't really have time for all the stats. I've done the research. It's okay. Go do your thing. We trust you. We believe in you. a nest egg appeared in our account a few days later that helped us survive another 6 months. So I would just, it's a long answer, but I think it's a combination of honing the story of what I'm trying to build and having a clear vision of what I want and communicating it in a compelling way. And then a whole lot of hard work at looking. You got to be good to be lucky and lucky to be good, right?
And persistence, it looks like.
It is. It really is. My body hurt. I was moving a lot of furniture, and I didn't know where this was going to go. But like you said, I knew we were the only one offering this. I knew if it was the Venn diagram of businesses, right? We're first to market. We have all the intellectual property, an endless demand for our service with no competition. That's a good business. That's a good.
Totally.
I knew I had the building blocks for this. Now I needed to push, and make a lot of noise, to be honest, so that other people could see and buy into what the vision was meant to be.
Hey everyone, it's Matt with MovingLetters.ai. When I started MovingLetters.ai, I wanted to do something different and shake up the direct mail space. And that's exactly what we're doing with our handwritten letters. Right now, get 1,000 free golden tickets when you start your campaign, and let's make the difference together. All right, guys, back to Mark.
And then what was your next step for opening up other locations? Because you're getting now a bunch of volunteers that are coming in. You've got some funding. Things are happening. But the reality is it's not just in Toronto. It's happening across Canada. And you need to expand out. We need to move it out. What are your typical first hires that you're looking at for someone to carry the torch to expand? Because we get a lot of guys that come on the show, or guys and gals, and the big talk is, okay, well, we need a salesperson, we need an operations manager, we need these certain people in place because that's how we successfully grow and start a moving company. But in your case, it's more like a foundation, or does it follow the same? What was your next step of having someone on your team that was going to lead the next openings to go into another province?
Well, this is where charity work, and I was new to this, but this is where charity or nonprofit work might differ from business expansion, because I know there can be a lot of costs to expansion and a lot of unknowns. There were for me as well. We expanded. Our first expansion city after Toronto was Ottawa, and we expanded to Ottawa because I used to live there. I went to school there, and an old mentor of mine, the head of Habitat for Humanity at the time, contacted me and said, "Mark, what's this moving thing you're doing? This is fantastic. Why don't we have this in Ottawa yet?" And I said, because I'm tired and I can't open another. She said, "Well, I'm going to open this for you. I believe in this. Do you believe in me to build a team?" And they were all volunteers at the initial stages of Ottawa. This was a group of 5 women, recent retirees, people who are educators and business people. And the 5 women came together and they said, "If you train us on how to do these moves according to your standards and your safety protocols, we'll keep reporting into you." And they did it at absolutely no cost. So, that's not how you would run a for-profit business. I understand that. But in the nonprofit, it is a distinct advantage in growth and expansion when people are doing things because they feel attached and they own the mission. I said, I have 3 kids. I don't trust a lot of people with my kids. I'm very protective of my kids. I don't give my babies away to anybody. Shelter Movers is my 4th baby. I don't give my baby away to anybody. But I did give the secret sauce. I did give the Shelter Movers brand to Elizabeth Rock, to this wonderful mentor of mine in Ottawa, because I knew she would love the baby like I love the baby. And if I translate that to business, maybe it's the founder in me talking, but I would say if anyone's looking to expand to a new city, the only way I could give away any control over this was because I met somebody I knew loved this like I loved it and would own its mission and the moral goals of the organization the same way I do. And anything short of that is unacceptable because I don't think they'll protect the baby like I will. And so I look for those special people now as we're hiring for Winnipeg right now. We're looking for a director to run that chapter now. Shout out to Winnipeg, folks. If there's anyone looking to get into the charitable sector, this is the time to do it in Winnipeg. I need someone who convinces me that we will love, that they'll love that baby and cherish it and honor our mission as seriously as I do. And so that reduces the population to a very small group of people. But we do find them. These unicorns are incredible humans who give their all for our work.
Mover Marketing AI is changing the game for moving companies with their innovative digital marketing solutions. I've been working with them on my SEO and website, and the results are incredible. My online presence has improved, making my site both visually appealing and highly visible to potential customers. But that's not all they do. Mover Marketing AI offers a full range of services, from engaging social media management to robust branding, advertising, and public relations. They help you build a strong, trustworthy brand. If you're ready to elevate your moving business, I highly recommend Mover Marketing AI. They've been a game changer for me, and they can be for you too. Thanks to Mover Marketing AI for sponsoring this episode and for their support. And a fun twist. This isn't actually me speaking. It's a digital replication of my voice using AI. Pretty cool, right? Now let's get on with the podcast.
I like when you put it into perspective where, a lot of us as business owners, this is our baby, right? This is what we started. This is how we built it. This is what we imagine. We called it when it was, new. We fed it when it needed to be fed. And as it grows and starts walking, the last thing you want to do is trip and fall. The last thing you want to do is to get hurt, and you want it to see it succeed. And a lot of times when we use children as an analogy, when you hand that over to a preschool or a babysitter or somebody that's going to, watch and care, because you're like, I'm going away for the weekend. Here you go. You want the same care and attention placed on your child as much as possible to see it. And so I do love that about of what you've said, because it is really important, especially when you're expanding. You want someone that's going to lead it better and care for it even better than you are. And it shows a lot. You talked earlier about the dangers of going into these homes that can happen and the training that has to get involved. Can you talk a little about that? Like, can you share one of your experiences or stories where a crew or team has went to someone's home and you're in a dangerous situation, and what you guys do as a team to prevent it or teach?
We've completed, in the last 8 years, we've completed a little over 7,000 moves, 7,200 moves over these years. And I'm very pleased to say that we've had 0 cases of any sort of physical altercation or aggression by an abuser towards our people. It's happened 0 times. It might happen one day, but a lot of the reason why it hasn't happened is because of the enormous amount of planning we put in place and the information that we're gathering as we coordinate the move in the days leading up. And so our preference is we want boring. We don't want him. We want to find a time when he's not there at all. Maybe he's out of the country. Maybe he's in jail. Maybe he's, we just don't want him to be there. That's the first step, is that we just operate in a safe space when he's not there. Maybe the landlord is the abuser and the landlord lives in the building. Well, then he's going to see all this happening and he may not be happy about it.
Has that happened?
Absolutely, it's happened. Most definitely. Or the landlord might not be the abuser, but maybe they haven't paid rent because her name is not even on the lease, or maybe it is on the lease because the abuser forced her to put her name on the lease when she didn't want to or something. And he's in charge of paying rent because he's also controlling their finances, which is usually the first step in a seriously abusive relationship, is economic control. Abuse is about isolation and control. So the abuser wants her to believe that she can't make it on her own. The abuser wants her friends to believe that she's crazy. He'll gaslight her to make her feel like she's crazy. He'll discredit her to her community and their mutual friends, and basically try to convince her that the only safe place is with him, even though he's harming her. It's a very twisted psychological violence that happens in an abusive relationship. So when we are planning our moves, we are asking a lot of questions about where he is and what he's up to and who else might be a threat. So we do that threat assessment or a lethality assessment in coordination with the women's shelter with whom we're working. So we know who he is, we know his history, we know what he's done to date, we know whether or not he'll be there. If there's any chance that the abuser is there, we raise the risk profile of the move immediately, and we must involve either a combination of or one or the other of private security or local police or RCMP. And although we want to always follow the survivor's wishes, in these cases, there's no compromising on safety. And so we find ourselves, ideally, if the client's okay with it, we're using private security guards, and we have donated security in Vancouver and in all our cities by local firms who believe in our mission. And that's part of our model, is that I really don't want to pay for anything when it comes to operations. I don't want to pay for our storage. I want our storage partners to donate it for free. Storage Vault is a great supporter. Bluebird Storage is a great supporter. These large national brands that are providing this free storage. Penske in Vancouver is providing us with free or discounted trucks. And so these are local businesses who believe in what we're doing, as well as private security. So we will notify them and book them. If we need to book police as well, we will. And then we train our people very carefully. So we talk about being trauma informed. We talk about how to talk and negotiate with somebody who's experienced trauma. Trauma literally changes how our brains operate. It makes it more difficult for us to make decisions. It's more difficult to be certain of oneself, having that confidence. Trauma reduces the sense of confidence we have in our ability to make good quality decisions. So our clients frequently ask us, is it okay if I take this? Is it too heavy for you? They're very worried about us. They're very worried about the impact of their decisions on us. And we train our people very carefully to say, you point and we move. We have them sign a document confirming that they have the right to take anything in the apartment, just as I'm sure some moving companies would have a similar agreement. These are your belongings and you're giving us the right to move them. And so we really empower her. And it's interesting to see her behavior from the start to the end of a move. Some clients are very, very shy and very submissive at the start of the move. And by the end, they understand what's going on. And they're like, no, put that down. I don't want that. Pick that up. And they become much more vocal and more animated. When the abuser does appear on the move, we usually get one of two responses. Abusers are either not violent, but they're sort of grumpy, or they're unhappy, or they're arguing about what can and can't be taken. So we have to negotiate that with the abuser very carefully. Or they're in complete shock that this person who they thought they had under their thumb suddenly has shown up at the home with an army of humans who are, and guards and police and their trucks outside, and they don't even know they didn't. And so they become very very charming and very nice, saying, sorry to put you guys out. We just had a disagreement, blah, blah, blah. And so we play on that. We say, no problem. We're just going to get out of your hair. We're going to pick up a few things. We'll get out of your hair. And we say whatever we need to say, basically, to...
Yeah, he doesn't realize the confidence level of her and the abuser has or the abusee has spiked up.
Indeed.
Yeah, for sure.
Indeed.
And she has his army around her as well, too, right? That's here, supporting, watching, waiting for probably him to fail.
That's it. That's it. She's probably, in some cases, she will not have had that many people believe in her and actively be there for her in a very long time. So even our clients are surprised at how well the moves go. They were expecting the big drama and the big combat and the guy throwing, but we've shown up at homes. We've shown up at homes where he may not be there, but he's piled up all of her most precious things and he set them on fire in the living room. And there's a pile of her things, a pile of the children's things, their wedding photos, her university diplomas burnt in the living room. We've been in homes where he knew she was coming back at some point, so he's painting messages and writing messages on the wall to threaten her and the children, saying, I'll find you. And so it's we sweep the building to ensure nothing's been done there are, we take security measures,
like cameras or anything that's been like pre-set up, or
some surveillance items, tags, air tags, things that abusers use to track the survivor's movements.
It's funny, I didn't even think about air tags for sure.
Air
Hiding in
tags,
luggage, yeah.
yeah, and other things that other digital methods of surveillance that I won't discuss. That it's not in our wheelhouse, but we have a fairly robust cybersecurity infrastructure in our own IT systems, because there have been attempts by abusers to infiltrate our own and breach our own systems with phishing.
And that was one of the things that you had spoken to me about before, was on the moving trucks, because a lot of times you want the rental trucks, the U-Haul trucks, because if that abuser comes back, sees, salmon's moving in storage, Googles it, knows that maybe, the victim is hiding the stuff there. He might want to show up at that moving company. There's a couple different scenarios. And then you had also mentioned to me that there is also a variance of level of risk where it's not the end of the world to have a moving company that's been tackled. Because I don't want to get, because the whole point, that we really want to bring awareness is to have more moving companies and storage facilities support and help Marc and his team at Shelter Movers Out. So I don't want to get people worried that these guys are going to show up at your moving facility, but there is those different risk levels.
Yeah, I appreciate you raising that. When we measure the risk that they're facing, it's usually high, medium, or low risk. And for any high or medium risk move, we use unmarked vehicles or just rental trucks. We partner with moving companies most often in the low risk moves, which is kind of the happy ending, to be honest, of this journey, where the client's been in shelter for 6-9 months, and we've had her belongings in our storage facilities for that period, and now she's ready to move out of the shelter to her new home. And for that, the abuser's not really in the picture at that point. Her address of her new home has not been shared with anybody. It's a safe space to operate, and we can use our moving partners, and we frequently do, where they will join our team. We'll pick up the client in the shelter. The moving company goes to our storage facility with part of our team. They load up the truck together, and then the client, who we are driving, and the moving truck will meet at the new home, and we unpack and set her up at her new place. And it's a very privileged position to be in, to be with a survivor when she's standing in the room of her new place. And this happened to us a few months ago. Her son, her little boy comes in. We're unpacking the boxes and opening, and it's like Christmas for this kid because it's his own stuff. But
sure.
And he's running around and he's playing with the toys, and she's standing a little taller now. And she says, she turns around, she says, "I did this." And we said, "Yeah, you did." She said, I got out. And we said, "Yeah, you did." She's like, "I'm not going back." And we're like, "No, you're not going back." And she's achieved something that's monumental for herself and for her kids. And we get to be in the room when she's having that moment to herself and realizing what she's done for her future. And I defy anyone at Shelter Movers or any volunteer, any moving company to be on that move and be in the room with her when that happens and not want to do another move. It's a very special moment. And it's her moment. We often say our clients are the Luke Skywalkers of the story, and we are the Obi-Wan Kenobis of the story. She's the hero of her story, and we get to be there as a faithful friend and ally for a short period of what is often a long journey. And our movement of volunteers is based on people who don't need to know who they're helping. They just need to know that they are helping, if that makes sense.
So we get a lot of listeners from all over North America and down south in the States. What is the next step for Shelter Movers? How can they get involved, if they were looking to try and be supportive in their own communities? Is that a way that they can reach out to you, to the team? Let's dive into how moving companies can make that next step.
Yes. So our vision for growth is largely focused on Canada at the moment. As I mentioned, Winnipeg this year, opening likely in Saskatchewan in 2025. But we are having discussions and have been approached by groups in other parts of Canada, as well as California, Massachusetts, and the like. These are individuals. Some are owners of moving companies. Some are just regular citizens. But they realize that there's no service like this where they live, and they like the example I gave in Ottawa. They want to demonstrate to us that they love this baby like we love this baby, and they will honor it the same way that we are in service to survivors. And so those discussions are about trust and about demonstrating that they have a network and an ability to bring people together to volunteer. They know how to do some fundraising, and if they are missing pieces of that puzzle, they're willing to learn from us and willing to take on that training.
And you had mentioned in the very beginning, when you opened up Ottawa location, it was a Habitat for Humanity facility, organization. What if it was a moving company that said, I really want to give up? Like, I'm ABC Moving Company down in Seattle, right, or New York, that really wants to tie in shelter movers as part of this addition to our company, volunteered by our guys, volunteered service. Is that something that you're open to, something for discussion, something that hasn't been really placed out yet? What would that look like?
Definitely openness to it. I think the nice thing about this service, similar to any for-profit mover, is that it is highly replicable. There's a lot of logistics and a lot of care that's put into it, but this is not rocket science. We don't need a ton of specialized equipment.
Sure.
That's okay. We don't need a ton of specialized equipment. We don't need, this is all trainable. These are trainable skills. And so it's a highly replicable charitable model. I'll be speaking at the Self Storage Association conference in Las Vegas in September, and there'll be a number of folks in the storage industry there as well, and potentially some movers as well who are in the storage business at the same time. And I think my message to them, similar to my message here, is if you own a moving company and you're looking for a way to give back to the community, Shelter Movers is about as close to your business model as I can think in terms of transferable skills in order to open a charity pretty quickly, to be honest, and get to creating some real impact. Unlike other organizations that might be more about advocacy or being out in the streets and pressuring government, the people I work for don't have time for that. They need action right away. And I believe in change through action, as opposed to change through asking someone else to take action. The people I serve don't have time for me to hope that government is going to change its mind on something or come along. I'll ask government for help, but Shelter Movers is predicated on small businesses and large giving their time and talents and money, individuals in the community giving their time and talents. And yes, if there are governments or private foundations that get involved, we need them as well. But it doesn't work unless you have that mix. We don't want to have, you want your revenue diversified, right? We want our resources diversified in case one falls, the organization can't fall down with it. So if in your example, a Seattle-based small moving company wants to open up, we would have the conversation, talk about the types of things we need in place to get going. Talk about the training that they would need to understand how we talk to people who've experienced trauma. A lot of moving companies have a lot of men working in them. Not a lot of moving companies have a lot of women working in them. I might be the CEO, but we're effectively a women-led organization. And as a women-led organization, we like to have women in lead positions during the move, for example, because our clients are probably more comfortable with women.
Sure, of course.
So making sure that we focus on women in leadership positions, that's an important quality that I would love to see more of in the moving industry, to be very honest. And I welcome that. And I think that would really serve the industry well, and it would really serve this charitable kind of work really well as well. There's a place for men, there's a place for us, and we want to be allies. But it's not everywhere all the time. There are places, in my opinion, where we do need women in leadership positions specifically to serve the populations that we're targeting.
I think you also want that extra care. Like, women have a certain sense of empathy and to handle a little bit more of that situation. I mean, I always think I have pretty good empathy, but my wife might differ. So I can totally see that where you're like, oh, let's just have a little more women in charge.
I want our clients to feel in control and safe and comfortable. So whoever that looks like is who they need, and that's why my job is to listen to them and put those people in place. Maybe it's men. Some of our clients love having big, strong men. They feel safe with those big, strong men moving the stuff around. And some say, could you send a team of all women? And we say, we're sending you a team of all women, and we make it work, right?
What is some of the most common stats that people don't think about when you hear about abusive women? Because you said before, there's a lot of gaslighting going on. There's a lot of, oh yeah, well, you were with him and this is the situation, and but the stats are much higher than a lot of people think about.
Yeah, it's pretty shocking. So in Canada and around the world, definitely the most dangerous place for any woman or girl is in their own home. That's where most women or girls will experience a form of violence. It's not some stranger on the street or something. It's usually by a partner, an intimate partner, or a family member in their home. And so in Canada today, a woman or girl is killed every 2 days, usually at the hands of a family partner or an intimate partner.
Of course, you never hear about that in the news, like those type of stats.
No, it's not a discussion that we seem to want to have at the scale I think we need to have, and I think we need to be really open about the fact that this is, do some women abuse men? Yes, they do. And is it underreported? Yes, it's underreported. But the vast majority of violence that happens in the home is men hurting women. We don't view gender-based violence against women as a women's issue at Shelter Movers. It's a men's issue. It's a problem that men have hurting women in order to exert control. And so calling it out as such and being really open about that, saying that we have a generation of men who feel this is acceptable and this is an okay way to treat the women in their lives. And the men who volunteer and work at Shelter Movers, I think, are really demonstrating where they stand on that issue. And the businesses who support us are demonstrating where they stand on that issue, saying, I'm a man, I own this business. Violence against women is unacceptable in 2024 in Canada. I won't stand for it. And I'm putting my business resources towards something that I think needs to stop for my daughter and my aunt and my coworker, my female coworkers, and the women in my life, and the women I don't know who deserve the same kind of dignity. It's a stance. It's a business value that can be articulated in a really tangible way when they get involved with Shelter Movers, because it's saying, even what you're doing by giving us this platform, you as a man and as a business owner, you're taking this stand as well, I think, to give us a chance to talk about this issue. And the more men talk about it, the more comfortable we get when we hear someone make an off-color joke or a sexist remark about a coworker, to say, that doesn't fly in this business. That's not acceptable. There's nothing okay about that, and it's not funny. No one should be made to feel unsafe in the workplace, and the women in our community deserve safety. And my job as a citizen and as a father and a husband is to provide that safety in a way that serves their purposes. And so the businesses who approach that, a lot of businesses talk a lot about that. These are a lot of men, white, middle-class men, who've seen or heard things in their life. We've all been around guys who do it, and they've said, I don't want to be associated with that. I don't want my business associated with that type of behavior. In fact, we're going to go on the other side of the coin and be a force for good in the community, and here's how we're going to do it. And so we give a lot of love back at Shelter Movers to the businesses who support us, because I think it's not always easy to do in some circles to take a stand on things like this. But those who do get a lot of love. I can say that.
Well, I appreciate that. I think it's important. I remember when I first reached out to you, I love what you guys are doing. And to me, there's individuals out here in the world that become naive and don't have the knowledge and they don't educate themselves to want to care. That when we had an opportunity to talk and meet in person, it was something where I was like, I got to get you on our show, because I feel that more companies, the audience needs to learn about shelter movers. I actually was just before jumping onto this podcast, was talking to another moving company in Canada, and was saying, "Oh, I actually have Marc coming on from Shelter Movers," and he's like, "Who's that?" So to me, it was like, okay, well, you got 5 minutes, because I'm going to give you a quick brief, but then you better listen to the podcast. And and to me, it's that's where building that audience, and like you were saying, like just being persistent and educating that story, having the story, and it goes to me in any business that you have. Build your brand, build your story, make it effective, and then put it on repeat, so that every single person is listening to it, and that you are touching everybody's ear, that now Shelter Movers becomes that topic at the dinner table, whether it's nice or pretty. But I'd rather also be talking about the pretty stories, about the happy endings that you're talking about, that fills everybody's hearts, and also to discuss sometimes the dangerous parts of it, so that you're aware, going, yeah, I would not want to be in that situation. Let's help that person out with our experience. And for all those moving companies out there, we all have the trained guys and gals in the industry that can probably do it sometimes 10 times faster than Marc's volunteers.
Sure.
So if we had one of us volunteering our time with their team, it could go 10 times faster, more efficiently, and maybe even we came out learning something, and their team walked away learning how to pad wrap or box this woman's fragile items of her family albums in a box properly, instead of getting all smashed. Sure. Whichever way you want to look at it, there is a cohesiveness and a partnership that is available, and Marc is all for it. How can someone reach out to your team? What's the best way?
Well, our website, sheltermovers.com, is the first place to go. Sheltermovers.com has our backstory, ways to get involved, whether it's volunteering or funding moves or providing in-kind support. We do have great relationships with a number of movers across the country who, as I mentioned, either help us with the moves and or they might provide training on how to lift, safe lifting practices, safe moving practices for our volunteers. So there's a bit of a learning opportunity there. And so going to sheltermovers.com is probably the easiest way to reach out. My email is marc.hj@sheltermovers.com. You can write me directly, and I'll make sure that whoever is running our chapter in your city will reach out, and we can triage that. I think the you talk about the values that kind of underpin that. We're very values driven. I think most successful businesses have clear values that they stand by. I would ask your listeners as business owners to ask themselves what the world is supposed to look like after they've done their job, and what is the feeling their customers have, not the dollars and cents and the objects that they've been moved. What is the feeling those customers have, and then translate that to what that means for regular people in their community who might be experiencing abuse. What feeling do they want those people to have after they've served them, and partnered with Shelter Movers to give their expertise, maybe their trucks, maybe some staff, on the off days as well. We have a very flexible, this is not where we differ from the moving industry, is that these moves, as you said earlier, they can happen at various times of day or night. They can happen with short notice. Usually for the low risk moves where we use moving companies, we actually have several weeks notice, because she's going to move out of the shelter, say, at the end of the month. So we've got several weeks to plan this, and most of our moving partners can slot that in pretty easily, and have trucks and a couple people ready. But
now I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Yeah.
If I was, down south, because it's not open, or even in an area, so I'll say like Prince George, like northern BC, I have a small moving company. I know one of the companies that's up there, or even in Kitimat, that's listening to this podcast going, boy, I would love to help. Something that is pressing on my heart. My family member, somebody has been in this situation, and I missed it, but I really now want to help. could they go to a local shelter to offer their services? Is it something that they could contact your team and say, look, you don't have a location here, but I really want to help. Do you have like a shelter movers handbook to say these are the things you need to ask the shelter to have in place for you to do it, because we also care about your safety? Like, is there maybe that's why I said I'm sorry I'm throwing you on the spot, because now you probably got the brain turning going like, oh, maybe I should build a handbook. We should have something like a easy, like a go-to top 10 things to ask to, because there probably are people going, well, I do want to help and I want to start, not just thinking about it, but I want to be active.
Well,
what should I do?
So do we have a handbook? I would say we don't have a handbook. What we have is we have standard operating procedures for how we operate. And what I would say is to somebody who operates in a part of the country where shelter movers does not exist, they should reach out to us, explain to us how they'd like to be involved. And we have relationships with not every shelter in the country, but most shelters, because some of the people we serve, for example, have been trafficked from long distances, from rural communities into major cities. We would drive someone out of Vancouver or out of Toronto, and in some cases drive 5, 6, 7 hours back to her hometown where she was taken from. And so you may never know, there may be a moving company in that small town that's operating. And, we might say to them, you know what, we actually drive to your town not infrequently. Can we have some kind of arrangement where we meet you halfway, and we'll give you the items that we got out of her place in Vancouver. We'll put them in your truck, and the client will go with one of our cars, but can you drive it the rest of the way and unload it in her small town? So even though we operate within about an hour and a half perimeter around the city center of these 9 cities in Canada, we do long distance, what we would consider long distance moves, 3, 4, 5, 6 hour drives outside of the city center, and we need partners in those communities to help. So we may not have a physical operational presence in those small towns, but it's not that we're not serving those in some ways. So
reach out. At the end of the day, reach out.
Reach out. Go to sheltermovers.com and write us a little note just telling us who you are. Let us know you have a moving company and you want to help. Our operations people will definitely find a way to use the resources. And yes, if it's really far away and we don't actually operate there, we probably will know the shelters that operate there and can make a connection for you and foster the relationship a little bit. Shelters are shelters. They're there to be in rural communities. That's usually the poorest kept secret in terms of where they're located. Everyone knows where the local women's shelter is, unfortunately, and it's supposed to be a bit of a confidential location in many circumstances. So just knowing where some of these buildings are is in and of itself information that not everyone should have in order to protect the people living inside. And so there are discussions that have to be had about building trust with these companies. A lot of people who are trying to find, a lot of abusers who are trying to find survivors, they pose as salespeople. They pose as whatever, saying, I just want to get in touch with Marie. I know she's at the shelter. Can you just put her on for a quick moment? I just want to let her know her package is ready, or whatever. They say all these ridiculous things. And the shelters see through all that, and they don't discuss who stays in the shelter. And so there are safety protocols we have to respect in order to keep everybody safe. But the short answer is, go to sheltermovers.com. Let us know that there's an interest. We will know what to do with your willingness to help, because the need is enormous, and our organization and its reach needs to grow 4, 5, 10-fold if we're going to take this problem on seriously. So we need all the help we can get.
And I'm calling out Colby Kiss from Total Moving and Total Storage in Winnipeg. They're opening up their location in Winnipeg. I am sure they can use a storage facility in there. You better be reaching out to them. I'm going to follow up with you, Colby, and you're going to be in lots of trouble. So, hey, Marc, you know what? It was so awesome to have you on the show today and coming on to Movified, discussing and sharing these unbelievable triumphs that you've had. And it's not just you. It's this amazing team of volunteers and the organization that you built at Shelter Movers across Canada, with coming on to 10 locations, which is amazing, especially over this period of time, and going a different way than a typical, like we talked about, a typical moving company, but more in the different in a volunteer status. Also, if anybody hasn't heard in the last 10 minutes, go to sheltermovers.com or email Marc at marc.hj@sheltermovers.com. Thank God he did not put his last names in Hull-Jacquin because I could never probably pronounce it or spell it if someone asked me to. So thank you so much for making it easy for us. Again, it's been a pleasure, Marc. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And until next time, you can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, music. Talk to you guys later.
Hi, I'm Marc Hershey with Salmon's Moving and Storage. Today, I want to talk about Tighten Up training. Why? Because this is Netflix grade quality training. It's not those old videos and VHSs that you got hiding in your office somewhere. It's online, it's easy to use, they're short videos, but they get to the point. My new employees, these guys run through these training programs, there's tests at the end, and they're coming out going, oh, I'm ready to rock. So if you haven't checked out Tighten Up training yet, get a demo done, get on board. Guess what else is there? Online portals for my sales staff. Can you believe it? These guys can learn how to overcome objections and book more leads today. So what are you waiting for? Go check out Tighten Up training today.